Hey, welcome back. So this is our final video for Onshape Assemblies, and we are going to create this final exercise, intermediate assembly. So we'll be creating this clamp right here. This is our final product. It opens and closes to a certain distance because of limits that we've set. Keep in mind that we create 3 sub-assemblies, so let's go ahead and get started. For step 1, we want to create a copy of this document here, so go ahead and open it. And you should have a file that looks like this. This is what we created a few videos ago. For step 2, we're going to go ahead and create an assembly. So click on the plus sign, select Create Assembly. We're going to rename it as Small Arm Subassembly. So right click, rename, Small Arm Subassembly. We're going to go ahead and insert these 4 parts right here. Click on Insert. Select the pivot pin, the small arm grip, and small arm pin, and accept. By accepting, Onshape places these objects at a specific location. For step 5, we're going to group 3 items. So we're selecting the pivot pin, our small arm, and our small arm pin. And go ahead and accept. For step 6, we're going to use a child manipulator to fix our pivot pin. So let's go ahead and zoom in on this pivot pin, double click. And if you notice, if we move around this pivot pin, let's make sure that it's placed like this at the center. And it is located right at the center of the pivot pin. Right click at the center of the child manipulator. And go ahead and click on Move to Origin. Right click on the pivot pin and fix. So the only object that we can move is the small arm grip at the moment, and we cannot move the rest of the component. For step 7, we're using the Revolute mate to connect the small arm grip to the small arm. Click on Revolute mate. Let's hover over the small arm grip. Make sure you're on the front face of the small arm grip, hold Shift, and make sure we select this white icon right above. Now we're going to rotate. And we're seeing the back face of the arm. We're going to hold Shift here, and we're selecting this white point here, and accept. Exit out of Revolute 2. And notice we have a flush fit here, so we're good to go. And at the moment, we can rotate the small arm grip, and we can't move the arm. For step 8, we're making a copy of our small arm, so right click on the small arm, select Copy Small Arm, and paste small arm. We can also use Ctrl-C and Ctrl-V to copy and paste the small arm or any other component. For step 9, we're connecting our pivot pin to our new small arm. So go ahead and select Fasten Mate. We're going to the front face of the new arm. Hold Shift and hover below and click on this white icon. We're going to our pivot pin. We're hovering over this face right here. Hold Shift and then click on the center. And accept. Let's go ahead and close this. And what we see here is that our small arm grip can be rotated, but the rest of this component cannot be moved. For step 10, we're creating a new assembly. So go ahead and click here, Create Assembly. We're renaming this as Working Clamp Assembly. So right click, rename. So now we're going to click on Insert, select Assemblies, and select the assembly we just created. And just go ahead and hit the Accept button. So at this point, we're going to right click on the pivot pin, and we're going to select Fix. So now we can't move our object, but we can rotate our grip. For step 14, we're adding the components of the large arm. So select Insert, click on large arm grip, large arm pin, and accept. For step 15, we're going to group our large arm and our large arm pin. We accept it. So now we can move this and it's united. Let's move this a little bit here. For step 16, we're using the Revolute mate to connect our large arm grip to the large arm. So let's move like this. So now we're looking at the back face of a large arm. go ahead and select Revolute Mate, hover over the large face, hold Shift, and go to this icon here, and click on it. Now we're going to see the front face of our large arm grip. We're hovering over this face here, and we move to this white point here, and we click on it, and we accept it. Let's close this window, and notice we have a flush fit. For step 17, we're connecting a large arm to our pivot pin. We're going to now use a Revolute Mate to connect our large arm to our pivot pin. So hover over this face here, hold Shift, and click on this white icon. Let's rotate. Now we're going to hold Shift on this face here, on the front face of this arm, and we're selecting this location here, and we accept. So now our two arms are back to back, and we can rotate the large arm. We also see that our pivot pin is flush with the two arms. Let's go ahead and exit out of this. For step 18, we're going to click on these large arm components. We're right-clicking, and we're moving them to a new subassembly. For step 19, we're renaming this new subassembly to large arm subassembly. So rename. For step 20, we're just fixing our large arm at any location. So notice we can move the large arm grip, but we can't move the rest of the arm. For step 21, we're going to copy and paste the large arm. So click on the gray piece, copy the large arm, and then paste the large arm. For step 22, we're connecting the large arm pin to the other large arm that we just added, and we're going to use a fasten mate. So select fasten mate, hover over this face here. Notice we're looking at the front face of the new arm, and click on this icon here. Now we're going to hold Shift on this portion of the cylinder, and we click on the center, and accept. Close this. Notice we can't move the arm, but we can still rotate the grip. For step 23, we're adding another large arm pin. So go ahead and click on Insert, large arm pin, and go ahead and drop that anywhere. Now we're using the Fasten Mate to connect the pin to one of our large arms. So go ahead and click on Fasten Mate. So let's move the little pin out of the way. Click on Fasten Mate. Let's go to this front face of our new pin. Hold Shift while hovering over this cylinder and click on the center. Let's rotate. Now we're looking at the back face of this portion of the large arm. Hold Shift on this face and click on the white icon and accept. Let's close this. For step 25, we're going to notice that all the changes that we made in this subassembly were created also in this working clamp assembly. We have our two large arm components and two large arm pins. For step 26, we're going to add limits to our Revolute number 2. So you should have a Revolute number 2 here. I have a Revolute number 1. So I'm going to add limits. So I'm clicking on this, add limits. So let's go ahead and put a value of 0 here and a value of 30 here. For step 27, we're going to go ahead and measure the distance between this large arm pin and the small arm pin. So we're going to open up the clamp as wide as possible. Let's look at the right side. We're selecting this measuring tool. We're clicking on the pin right at the center, and then we're clicking on the large arm pin at the top. So you should be reading a value here on parallel axis. Use a value for the parallel axis for your self-check, and it should be the correct value. So anyways, thanks for watching. Check out the other videos.